My name is Annie Donoghue. I am the research leader for the Poultry Production and Product Safety Research Unit, which is part of ARS USDA, and we're on the campus of the University of Arkansas, part of the Center of Excellence for Poultry Science. And I've been a PSA member for 27 years. I was in a military family. My dad was a Marine Corps helicopter pilot, so we did a lot of traveling. Spent some time in North Carolina and Hawaii, and mostly in California, and my dad retired in San Diego, so I did most of my growing up there. I worked for a small animal practice veterinarian. It was this local kind of small town vet, very personable and just a great experience. I started off undergrad at UC San Diego and then switched to San Diego State University. I was working in the area of zoologist. I wanted to be a veterinarian. And then I wanted to get some experience. I always was fascinated with conservation and wildlife. So I started working for Barbara Durant, who is the reproductive physiologist at San Diego Zoo. And she was just amazing, and just her fascination with science and discovery just really compelled me to really switch what I was planning, which was to go the veterinary route, to go to research. And so I started there. Then I went on to Texas A&M and majored actually in animal science, although I had a lot of colleagues in poultry science. Worked for a great mentor there, Tom Welsh, in reproductive endocrinology. And then from there, I went to the Smithsonian and worked on my PhD work with Dave Wilt and collaborators there, and did my coursework at the Uniformed Services University, which is the military medical school for all of the military services. My first experience was actually at A&M, helping out a friend, a colleague, Dan Donoghue, on some of his heat stress experiments. It wasn't a very popular study he was doing, and so he was kind of running out of people, and I wanted to learn more about the reproduction and some of the work with birds. So that was my first experience. I was doing work in reproduction at Smithsonian, which was wonderful, but it was always very hard getting funding. So I tried a couple of other things away from the research bench, thinking I would go more into sort of service type work. And Ag Research Service ended up being a wonderful fit for me. The thing I loved about it was that it's long-term research goals. So you really can focus on a problem and kind of work through that whole spectrum of how we're going to help solve things for the industry. And I think probably the thing that sold me most about it was when I interviewed, there were a lot of very senior scientist men that were working, and they were still as passionate as little boys working in the lab and what they were doing. And I think when you see somebody doing that and you go, wow, that's their career and they're having that much fun, I was sold. I think my most favorite part, there's several things, but I love the work we did in looking at sperm competition in turkeys. Everyone in this audience knows that turkeys are produced by artificial insemination for the most part, and a lot of the semen is pooled. And what we were able to do is some really kind of fundamental work showing that only a few males in that pool were actually providing the genetics for a lot of the poults that were hatched. So that was kind of fun. It was really neat to work with all the major breeder companies at the time, and to really get sort of that interaction or the interface of what the breeding and genetics folks are doing on the early end versus the kind of applied work that actually came in the long run from doing some of the work that we did. So that was fun. I love the work we're doing now with some essential oils and trying to knock out some of the food safety issues, and it's really a very interesting time with the reduction in use of antibiotics, that we can come up with some really good strategies that are both beneficial to the birds and helpful for us as well. I think that's a lot of people. For me, it goes back to Barbara as an undergraduate, all my professors throughout school. One thing I was really fortunate early on in my career at ARS was to be involved with one of the regional projects. This was a reproduction and poultry group, and it really had all the big names in poultry at the time. People like Elowani and some of the folks out of Wisconsin and people out of North Carolina, Vern Christensen, and there's so many, I shouldn't start to mention them all. But what was so nice about that, they really, so to speak, took me under their wing. And when I'd come up with ideas, every year we'd meet, I'd have a bunch of research ideas and strategies I'd thought about or things I wanted to do. And they would really spend the time kind of going through and pointing out papers that I might have missed or research strategies that I may or may not have thought of. And it really helped to develop the science fully. And to have that many brilliant people that were so generous with their time was just absolutely fabulous. I think it's truly been very impactful. I love the society. In fact, it was basically Dan early on had joined and just, it was so much different from any of the other societies I'd ever been in that I realized it was special early on. I love how, it's been very, very supportive of early career scientists and all the way, like I said before, all the way through my career. It's been great. And it's a great place to network and develop teams and programs based around things that are really, really important, not only for the industry, but for food production overall. Well, it's an absolute honor. I think probably the first thing that happened to me when I heard that I was being considered was, wow, I'm kind of I've been in this career a long time. It's gone so quickly, and I used to look up to these folks who had been designated fellows and think, wow, what a fascinating career, and they've just done some great, great work. And so, it's just an incredible honor to be considered those folks, along with those folks.